So this is a refresher on the NC Live website service, and it will be led by Daniel Whitehead, who is our web and database development librarian at NC Live. So I'll have him take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Devin. Let's see. Welcome, everybody. So yeah, as she said, I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the NC Live website service and some of the features of that, how you implement it, as well as kind of just the overall at a glance, like what we're doing. So the purpose of the website service, it's a project that we've had going on for a few years, and we really wanted to make something that was available. We saw a need in our libraries to have like a nice modern look to their websites. We recognize that our librarians all across the state have limited resources and limited time to work on a website. A lot of the time they don't have a dedicated web developer on staff. It's outside the budget, or they're in a different department. And so we wanted to make something that was pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use, and also that was built off a system that librarians are familiar with. In this case, it's built sort of on top of LibGuides. From a technical perspective, we also wanted to make something that was a little bit better with mobile than LibGuides' default output, as well as a slightly more modern aesthetic. And so to do this, we built this what we call our onboarding tool, and this is kind of the main form that you'll be using to customize the website service and to build out your styles and turn off and on certain features. The other thing is that we wanted to make sure that we provided some technical support for our libraries. So if you do like turn something on and something doesn't look weird, or something goes wrong, then we wanted to have the option for you folks to contact us and just like let's work with you to try and get stuff figured out. So that's kind of the overall at a glance look. And the way that it works technically is we have the LibGuide, and then we kind of add some extra styles onto it. And so one thing I feel like would be helpful here, though, is just showing one good example. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you. Hopefully, this is something that will probably look familiar to a lot of you, but just what a LibGuide page might look like with none of the styling applied. So here you can see we've got our very fancy testing page with some components on it, and it has some things like some headers and some paragraphs, as well as some other features in this main content region, such as these tabs, and it's got a search that we've added, as well as these other kind of like tabbed content regions. And then on the sidebar, we also have kind of default navigation options to click to different pages within the LibGuide, as well as a nice librarian picture here of Luke's dog Ender. He's a little bit rowdy for my taste, but I'm more of a cat person, but that's okay. And some contact information for Ender the dog. And so this is just kind of like a standard LibGuide page. And while it's mostly functional and mostly fine, I don't know that it's going too far outside the bounds to say that it's probably stylistically something that looks like it came from like 2008 or so. And so again, this is one of the things that we're hoping to overcome, is to make it so that we apply some slightly nicer styling to it. And so here now, I'm going to go ahead and show you. That's the same page. This is the same page, but with some of the LibGuide styles applied, or some of the website service styles applied on top of it. And so you'll notice that at the top here, we've got this header that has some features that we're going to talk about in just a minute, as well as a global navigation area down here. We also have some different colors that we've added. You can see this nice lime green. I'm a web developer. I'm not a designer, so please forgive any of the color choices that I've chosen here. As well as you can see, like here's that same tab content, as well as Ender the dog once again. And we've got some social media buttons, that kind of thing. So really we've got some styles for sort of the main content region of the page, some styles for at the very top of the page with some different features. And then if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, we also have this new footer section that we add as well. Cool. So that's just kind of like a very high level look at what the website service is doing. So essentially we're just adding in this top section at the top that has the menu and some other features, then content stuff in the middle. changing some of the base styles that LibGuides provides for us, and then sort of appending a footer at the very bottom of the page. Let's see. So we talked about that. And now, as far as the implementation process itself goes, so typically you'll contact NC Live and sign up and pay for the service. It's a few $100s. Then what you'll want to do is there'll be a period where you'll be looking at your LibGuides and creating new LibGuides. You'll be setting them to private visibility, so it's not affecting your current site. You'll also work with us to get a username and password to access the onboarding tool. Then the next part will be going through the onboarding tool and sort of customizing each of the different features that that are important for your library, turning things off and on, that kind of thing, setting values, building out your menu. Once you've got your sort of the onboarding tool mostly set, we really recommend using the preview functionality of the onboarding tool to look at some of the pages of your site to see how things are going to look. Again, we're stacking these styles on top of the content that LibGuides generates. And so it might be that there's a page on your site where you have some custom styles for a single something small, and that could make it so that it overrides the styles that we provide. And so by previewing your pages, it helps us sort of find those spots, and maybe you can go and then fix up those small areas. Once you're sort of happy with how the previews are looking, the onboarding tool will let you generate code that you then copy and paste into LibGuides, and that'll override the default styling and sort of again append all these extra styles and these extra features. And then you go into your LibGuides and you set them to public visibility. And yeah, just let us know then, and then that's sort of the general flow of the process in terms of what you'll be doing for implementation. And so the first thing I will say too is that, like with web development and with web and with content also, sometimes people will say like content is king. And so the idea behind this phrase is just that the changes that the website service offers are mostly like sort of cosmetic or design related. And so if you are going to be changing your website a lot, I think that it's a really good opportunity to really look at the pages that you have and look at your content and really figure out what's best, and if the content that you have is really serving your users as best as it can. So there's some questions you might ask as you're reviewing your site, or if you're preparing a new site, you might think like, who is your primary audience? Like what are your patrons coming to your site to do? Like what content would they need to have on the site? For instance, different search, or maybe they need to be able to find contact a librarian, that kind of thing. And also look at like what content you already have. And so this might be an opportunity to create new content, or maybe rewrite old content, shuffle things around, or even delete things, which is one of my favorite things to do, is to make, take things that have gotten big and unwieldy and try to, prune them down a little bit to make it a little bit more manageable, a little bit easier. And so kind of the overall point here is just that anytime one is going to be editing a website and changing, the design of it, I think that it's really a really good idea to look at the content as well. So it just seems like a good pairing there. And finally, the last point of this is that, how should this content that's been updated or changed, how should it be organized? And so that's really important for the website service, because the website service, we sort of have a structure for LibGuides, which is every single section of your site is going to be its own LibGuide. And the reason why we do this is because we're taking advantage of LibGuide's side navigation to build out that nice little side navigation piece. And so you don't have to worry about the global navigation, because that's something that gets appended to the top of the page. And so for our recommendations for this is like, when you're thinking about content and thinking about your website, is to think about like maybe the biggest like 5 to 7 sections of your site and what those might look like. And so for instance, here in this sort of sample page, we've got like our home page, which can be its own guide. And then we've got some sort of we've got a few guides below that. So for instance, we have a services guide that has some sub pages of circulation, ancestry, research, help. We've got a resources section, which has books, ebooks, articles, etc. we've got a research guides list, which would just have a big list of research guides. We have a news link, which would actually go to a separate blog. And we have an about section, which has maybe information about staff and contacts, that kind of thing. And again, these headers here are just what, it's just a hypothetical example. These are going to be different for your library and what your library's needs are, who your patrons are, and all of that. And so as you're building out your site and building out these new libguides, it might be that you realize you need to restructure things from how things are currently. And so there you can take advantage of some of libguides is like copy and populate new pages functionality. They have some options to move content around. And if that fails, you can use the age-old and trusted Control C, Control V there. And again, depending on how your library has, like what you have in libguides and how you have things structured, this part is probably going to be the most time intensive and the hardest part, just because it's something that, it's going to be unique to each library, how big they are and where they're putting pages and that kind of thing. As far as individual page structure goes, there isn't very much that you have to do to add or to implement the website service. There are only a couple notes that I would say is that all of your libguides need to be set to use the side nav layouts structure. And then there's also a special marker for the homepage that you have to add, which I've included right here. Essentially what this is, it's just a marker for us to use to basically hide the big bar that has the color on it for this particular page. And so for instance, here you'll notice I've got a screenshot of Barton College's page, and you'll notice they don't have a big blue bar right at the top here. Instead, it just goes straight to search because that's a little bit better of a user experience. So that's the only kind of I guess gotcha for that particular page. Cool. The other thing, so now we've kind of structured our site, and there's a couple minor things we've done for individual pages. I'm going to talk now a little bit about just some of the features for the website service, and these are things that affect everything. So this will affect all of our pages. And so this is that sort of the top area of the page. And so the main things here are we have options for colors, and these are colors that are used throughout the entire template. And they're also the code also generates some shades / tints of these colors for us to use in different places. You may, depending on what your branding requirements are too, you may have to tweak these slightly, or it might be that, you might have to choose certain colors to make sure that everything looks good. There's also an option to put a library logo that you can click on optionally, as well as put your library name. That's this part right here. There's also an hours widget that you can turn off and on, a chat button, a search, and just kind of as a point here is that just about everything here is optional. So if your library doesn't have search or you don't want to use it, you can just not turn that. You can uncheck that box and it won't show up. And so let me just show you kind of a little bit more what this is going to look like. So this is the onboarding tool. And you'll notice that here we've got some different colors. Got that nice lime green and I don't know what one would call that, steel blue, maybe. I don't know. So we can go and we can click whatever colors we want there. We also have a couple of links to some helpful contrast checkers if you want to check to see what the color contrast is going to look like. I just noticed this morning that the LibRose contrast webpage is gone, and so I've made a note to remove that from here. But and then coming down just a bit, we've got these header options. So you'll notice we've got this link to a header image. We can also link to a specific site. So for instance, if we wanted to link to our website, we can go to nclive.org. We also have the option to put in the library name. So, and ours, as well as the chat URL. I'm going to go ahead and actually just show what this looks like. So I'd mentioned before that there is the option to preview pages. And so let's go ahead and do that right now, so we can have some fun with that. So if we go back to our actually, we don't want that. We're going to go here. So if we go into libguides and we go to the particular page that we wanted to look at, you can come up here and there's this URL. And in this case, it's this, the Community LibGuides test, which is the old name of the website service. And what we can do is, whoops, I'm in the wrong order. If we go down to the bottom here, we can click preview page, and then we can paste in that URL. And when we click preview, what's going to happen is the code is going to go grab that page as long as it's set to, as long as, oops, let me check, let me show you one more thing. As long as this visibility is as long as it can find the page, it will preview it for us. Yeah, so you can notice here that now we've got our page, we've got our fun components on here. So if we hover over this this image here, you'll notice that our link is now going to nclive.org. Okay, well, apparently I have an extra space there. There we go. Note to self, trim input. Okay. And then we can also have we can also put our library name. So you can say something like NC Live. And when we go to preview now, you'll notice it says NC Live instead. So let's see here. What are the other options? Another feature that I like is the libcal calendar. And so this allows you to create this this dynamic drop down. I guess it's a modal window. And in this case, you can click on this guy and it'll pop out pulling the data from your libcal. And you can have different areas of your library, and it'll show you like what times things are open. So that's pretty handy as well. And then there's also an option for a chat service if that's something that you have access to. So that would be this chat now button. And when you click on that, it'll pop open a window. In this case, we didn't tell it to go anywhere, but generally with chat services, you would put some URL in there that would say, and you go to the specific URL and it'll pop open there. Let's see, what are the other features that we have? There's also an option to add a login button. This is something that most libraries will turn off, but we have had a few libraries where they want a specific login to log into either like the librarian's interface or some other kind of system. And so you can have a button. You could potentially do a URL that'll go log into some other system or some other proxy system and then come back. So, but generally most folks will have that login off. And finally, one of the other cool features for the header is the option to add a search box for it. And this is something that we found is pretty helpful. And we have the options for it to search a number of different things, such as LibGuides, the NC Live website, Summon, CC Link, if that's relevant, or also a custom search. So for instance, that can be kind of anything. We've set it up a few times to go to different kinds of different catalogs. And typically, if you're going to be doing a custom search, then that's something you can email NC Live, and we'll work with you to get that sorted out, because it would look something kind of like this. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm pointing the search to the NC Live website, and I'm saying, hey, the query key is query, which sure. And so now if I go here and I search for, let's search for Redwall, you'll notice it goes to the NC Live website, and at the top we can see it's passed along this query equals Redwall, and then we get presumably materials about Redwall. Anyway, so that's something that you can work with us if that's something that you're interested in. Let's see. So that's all of the stuff for that top part of the page. Let's see. We also have a couple options for under this page structure section. We have an option to display the LibGuide search as well as the description. So let's see. So we go here. Thanks. Let's go here. That is not the right URL. It's onboarding. If we go here, you'll notice we've got these two options, and when we preview the page, come on, this one. When we go to preview the page, well, this one saved it. Okay, thanks. Thanks, webpage. So what that's referring to is this big, in this case, nice lime green section where we've got the side search here. as well as the description of the libguide. And these are things that you can turn off or on. So for instance, we decide we don't like those features, we can just uncheck these guys. And then when we go to preview instead, now we just get the title of the section instead of that extra line that describes it, as well as that search box on the side. Yeah. So sort of scrolling down the onboarding tool, we come to, I would say, probably the biggest and the most complicated piece of it. So this is the navigation section. And so before, when I was talking about those different sections, this is where the different sections that you would break up your site into, this is where that really comes into play. Because what you're going to want to do is each of these navigation links opens up into this huge thing, which is very it's a bit much, we'll be honest. But what happens is each of those things is their own section. So for instance, this might be, for patrons. And then when we go to preview, you can go over here, you'll notice that now this first link is for patrons. And so each of those main links becomes kind of its own group. And if we click on it, each main section can have up to 3 subsections. And again, this is the part that's can be kind of confusing as you're building out your navigation. And so this is why it's really a good idea to spend that time early to figure out what are these big sections going to be, and like what links do we want to link to in what order. And so for each of those main sections, then, so this is that first link. In this case, we're including this drop-down menu. And so in this case, we have section 1, section 2, and 3, and then each of those have their own links under them. And each section then can have its own series of links. I think you can have up to, what is it, 15 or something? I can't remember. This probably should re-engineer this, but that's a task for another time to make this a little bit more user-friendly. But yeah, so typically you'll have maybe 5 sections, and then underneath that, you'll have some number of these sort of subsections. They'll have some links in them. It doesn't have to be, these links don't have to be to a section, though. It could be something that goes to an external URL, or it could be just to a single page, and you don't need that drop down. So that's something else to consider too when you're building things out. Yeah, so I think, yeah, like in this case, this link to could be just to, maybe it goes back to the college website, or it goes to NC Live, or it goes to some other URL. But yeah, so that's probably the most complicated and time-consuming part, because you need to go through and then figure out what all those links are and what the URLs are, and then input them into this section. So for instance, yeah, like maybe we do need a drop-down menu for this part. We'll say part 1. Say link 3. So then we go to preview the page. Now when we click on link 2, now we have this little subsection. Yeah, so that's how the navigation works. And again, this is important because this is what ties each of the different sections, each of the different libguides, the different sections of your website. This is what ties them all together. Because if you'll notice, like these links on the side here, these are generated by libguides, but then the ones on top are ones that you would need to manage. So. And then finally, we have the footer options part of the onboarding tool. And what this is several, just a few groups that are basically just some extra content that you can put on the bottom of your page. So for instance, we have a contact information section where you can add in information about contacting the library. And it kind of, it'll do some nice formatting for us. So like we look down here again at the bottom, you'll notice we can contact the Main Street Library on Main Street. It's building 3 in Raleigh here, with the good old 555 number, as well as some, there's also an option to add in links to social media accounts if you wanted to do that. And then finally, we have a general content section. So this is if you needed to have some kind of notice or some other kind of maybe like a thank you, or maybe you have like a copyright notice, or some other kind of thing that you'd want to put on all of your pages. You can put it here. So for instance, I put a copyright notice here but maybe we don't need this right info box. And again, it should be optional. So when we click on this guy, we go to preview. Now we just have the copyright 2024. But again, that could be anything. It's kind of we found that a few libraries just needed they needed like a spot at the bottom to just put kind of generic content and generic text. So, and then finally, the last section that we have is the footer link section, and this is basically it's like it's replicating the main navigation section. You'll notice that there's footer section 1, footer section 2, and footer section 3. Except in this case, it's just one of these links as opposed to a whole bunch of things you would click. And so if we go back down again, you'll notice that we've got footer section 1, 2, and 3. And these links it probably wouldn't be stuff that people are gonna. It'd be either things that that people want to use all the time, or it could be things like maybe career opportunities or something where it's like the standard user is not necessarily going to be looking for that, but it could be something that's helpful to have. And so that's kind of the thought process behind these footer links, although you can use them in different ways. So maybe you link to like a contact page or like a help page, or again, like maybe like a jobs page. That kind of stuff could be useful on the footer. Or again, maybe duplicating certain links if you know the person's going to get to the bottom, or if you're afraid the person's going to get to the bottom of the page and then have something else that they're, maybe they missed the resources page, and so you could duplicate that kind of thing, just depending on what your use case is. Right. So that's kind of the overview of the onboarding tool itself and some of the features that it gives you and that it allows you to add to your pages. And so I will say, though, one thing you may have noticed is that this is a pretty big, relatively complicated form. And at the very bottom of the page, you get this configuration thing. And this is really important because NCLI, like, we don't record any of this data to our server. And so what I recommend doing then is that whenever you're done or you get to a good stopping point, or you fix some issue, or you fill out the menu, I recommend clicking this copy code button and then saving this as a text file somewhere safe. So I would recommend something like if your institution has access to like Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive, something like that. And the reason being is that this is what this saves basically the state of this giant form, and so you don't have to like end up re-adding the data. It's something that we're looking at doing, making it so that like when you can save it, and we'll save a copy to our server. It just ends up being a little bit complicated with basically figuring out like who's authenticated. We'd have to do some stuff with authentication, which would be a little bit more complicated in order to get that to work. It's definitely on our radar though to make that part a little bit easier, because we know it's a pain point for our users. And then the other thing too I'll say is that the server, or the website service tool, will it'll try to remember like what the state of the form was, but that kind of is browser dependent. So for instance, if I open up a new window here, let's see here. If I open up a new window and I go to the same thing, let's see. First it'll ask me to log in. But you'll notice that I have none of my data because it's not saved in this particular browser instance. And so what I would need to do instead is if I go down to the very bottom and if I copy this code, and I go to my new browser window, you can go ahead and click import existing configuration, and you can just paste in that config. And when I hit that, bam, it'll fill out the entire form with all the values, the most recent values of the form. And so that's just a way for when you come back, just to make sure that you're updating and have the most recent version of it. So, yeah, so that's kind of the general flow of that. And we've gone through, and I've shown a few times the different components. Let's see. I want to see. I got a little bit carried away, I feel like. We talked about the headers. Let's see. Talked about the page structure. Talked about global navigation. Let's see here. Talked about the footer. talked about the configuration profile. Yeah, so this is just used to populate the form. And again, you can use that import existing configuration button. And again, I can't stress, just be very careful. Just save this somewhere safe where other members of your team have access to it. I would recommend doing something maybe like, a date on the front and say, August 5th, 2024 configuration, that kind of thing. As far as other technical things to sort of progress through, we mentioned before adding that element to indicate what's your home page, as well as setting all of the pages to use side navigation and then breaking out your different pages. So that's kind of the main big pieces for the technical part. And then is when you're ready to go live. So this is the part when you've looked at some pages, you feel like stuff's looking good. We tried to make it so that it's fairly straightforward to do this. And so let me see. Let's see if we can do it. So what we can do is now that we're happy with our lime green and our light gray or light blue, steel blue, I'm not sure. If we're happy with how that looks, we can click this generate code button on the side. And what this is going to do is is going to generate several different blocks of code. And this page might look scary, but just realize like you don't need to know anything about coding. You don't need to know anything about how any of this works. So, and it does look pretty. We're compressing some of the stuff now due to some problems that we ran into. So it's going to look weird, but that's fine. Just don't worry about that. And so then what we need to do is all we need to do then to go live and to have these styles applied to all of our libguides is copy and paste this code into the style section in libguides. And so this is what that would look like. So we hit that generate code button and then we click copy over here. And then when we go into the right tab, which is the hardest part. No, still no. This one. Okay, cool. We found it. At the top, we go to admin and then under look and feel, not this look and feel beta, but just this first one. Under look and feel, under this first tab, it'll say header, footer, tabs, and boxes. This first, I guess, accordion part will say page header, and we've copied that header part, and we would copy and paste and click save. I'm not going to do it right now because it'll mess up one of our other libguides. But then we'd go back to the onboarding tool here on these files. We click copy for the footer. Let's see. I would probably actually recommend closing all the extra tabs that you have open before you do this. Let's see here. I'm just going to close those guys because we've got like a million of them. And then we paste the footer. And then finally, the last part, we go back to the onboarding tool and do this CSS JavaScript block. And then still couldn't find the right one. That's okay. We got it. And just paste that. And then once you hit save, this should affect all of your libguide pages at the same time. And so then you've applied all these new styles. Yeah, and definitely let us know when you're going to be doing this. It's just helpful for me to be available in case you apply all these styles and like something's looking weird, or it's also just nice for us to see it and get to get excited for you guys and or with you guys about that. And so, yeah, but it's nice to be available in case you do find some page where there is some styling that's weird or there's something that didn't quite work out right. So, yeah, so that's kind of the general launch process for most of the website service. And so now I'm going to talk just for a minute about one last thing before we open it up to some Q&A. So recently, SpringShare has implemented some new styles for a new A to Z list. And so this is their own, they're using a new CSS framework, and they're basically having an entirely new interface for managing your databases within libguides. And this is something that we've worked a little bit to make it so that you can apply website service styles to this page as well. And I will say that talking with SpringShare just a bit, it seems like their indication is that at some point in the future, they'll be moving all of libguides to this new design. And at that point, we'll have to work on figuring out what pieces of the website service we're to need to replicate and build out. But that's for several years in the future, it sounds like. But yeah, so as far as the A to Z list goes, I just wanted to show what that looks like right now and how you'd go about applying the website service styles to that. So close. Let's go ahead and go see if I can find it. Yeah, so if you go, if you're on, if you're in LibGuides and you click up on admin and look and feel beta, you'll move over to this new system, this new interface. And again, I think that they'll be moving everything here at some point, but it's unclear exactly what their timeline is. And in this case, like we've got this new database management list. In this case, I pointed it to some test databases, what have you. That's fine. And if you have no styles applied, it would look something kind of like this, which is very reminiscent of what the older, like what LibGuides looks like without any styles applied. Although to be fair, it is quite a bit nicer. So it does look quite a bit fancier. And so in order to apply the website service to this particular page, because it's its own separate system, you'll need to do that copy and paste process in this new interface as well. And so what that would look like is something like this. So we go and we copy the header, and then in this new interface, you go down to System Settings, and then under Pages, Look and Feel, you click on this second tab, which says Header and Footer, and then under Header, we would copy and paste this big block of pretty ugly. Oops, that's not right. We'd copy and paste this guy in there, and then we'd save those changes. And then we do the same with the footer, which I've already done. And then finally, you have to go to this third tab over where it says Custom JS and CSS. And then under CSS, you would grab this guy here. You'd grab the CSS. Oh my gosh, I grabbed the wrong one. Okay. We'd copy and paste our CSS there. And then the only thing that's different, I will say the only thing that's different with the new A to Z list is if you go to these template files that are generated from the onboarding tool, the only one that's different is this fourth one. And it's just, we are just also throwing in some old Bootstrap stuff to the same system. And so if we go here, you just copy and paste that under the header JS code. And we save that. And we'll save that guy. And now when we go back to the A to Z list and we click preview, so now it's going to show us the styles that we've implemented or that we chose from before. And so now you'll notice now we've got the lime green, which is just the June bud. It's a bit much, but that's what we're doing. And now you'll see we have the same stuff. Looks at the footer is the old data, but and so again, it is unfortunate that you have to copy and paste them in both places, but it seems like most of the code we're able to use the same styles. It's just that one extra little step for that header JS, and yeah, hopefully it's not too much of a bother. Although I do realize it is confusing having to do it twice. So I know we've had a number of questions come into the help desk about that. I will say too, there was a problem. One of the reasons why this header and the footer is now compressed is we ran into some issues where the new interface was cutting off the headers that we were trying to insert into it, and so it was breaking the styles like on the entire page. And so that was something that some of our libraries brought up, and so we've changed that. So hopefully that should be working for you guys now. But yeah, so that's kind of the A to Z list updates. Again, my understanding is that at some point in the future, in the nebulous future, SpringShare will be moving everybody over to these new styles, but I don't know when that time is going to look like. And most likely they give us probably a couple of years heads up when they're going to move it, or a year heads up. So yeah, so that was just sort of talking quickly about those features, the base features of the website service. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or you need any help, definitely send us an email at help@nclive.org. And if you have a specific question about your implementation, it's really helpful if you send us a copy of that configuration profile, because then I can load it up in there and see exactly what's going on. And then also the URLs of any problem pages. So